heroes and there are legends. Heroes come and go. Legends never die. We usually say that you cannot become a legend before death. These are living legends. If the legends fall silent, who will teach the children of our ways? Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, brought to you by Titan Sensor, is proud to present The Legends. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches Podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 5, The Legends, and have I got a treat for you. Today we are joined by 270-game winner, 3-time state championship, probably just as well known for getting his guys strong in the weight room as he was for leading men and winning games, Coach Rick Tomberlin. Thanks for being on with me.
What's up, Coach Lamb? Power up. Power up, man. Let's get it done. I've been looking forward to visiting with you, brother. And anytime anybody talks football or strength training, heck, man, I'm ready. So I'm looking forward to this.
Well, Coach, as I understand it, didn't you grow up and graduate from Applin County?
I did. I'm from Baxley, born there, Baxley, Georgia. I went to school in the Applin County system, graduated in 1975 at Applin County High School. The reason I chuckle, we're having our 50th high school reunion July 26th of this year, and we're looking forward to that.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
Tell you what, Chris, I can't hardly believe it's been 50 years. I mean, boy, that's amazing. Some of the things we did, honestly seems like yesterday, but time flies, I'm going to tell you. But yeah, grew up in Baxley. My father was a small businessman, kind of a mini entrepreneur. People out there might know Woody Folsom Automotive in Baxley. Woody's my first cousin. And my father, Mershon, it was his first name, of course, kind of had a similar personality to Woody, just a real entrepreneur spirit, lived the American dream, started off, went to the Army, come back, started a little gas station, and then he, bought a little, before convenience stores got popular, everybody kind of went to a bigger store. He opened a little convenience store and then put in gas pumps and did real well, then opened up another little store across town and then opened up a little chicken place with it, a little fried chicken place, Quick Chick. And he just hustled and worked. And my mother worked at the same job for 44 years. She worked at the bank. She started as a teller, and kind of worked her way up and became executive vice president of what was Baxley State Bank, become Trust Company Bank, and then Truist Bank. But, you look back, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, Chris. So you told me I can say whatever I want to. So here we go. People talk about, nobody gave my poor dad or mom one thing. Me and you are probably a lot alike. A lot of us coaches, we certainly didn't come from privilege. Now, my dad ran away from home at 17 years old and, went to the Army and come back and just scratched and clawed for everything he had. Mom had to work hard and landed a job in those days in the mid 50s, was a great job getting on with the local bank. And she just worked real hard and they labored and tried to help us have everything we needed. We didn't have a lot of extras, but we had everything we needed. Growing up, I grew up watching, the Andy Griffith Show and the Beverly Hillbillies and, Bonanza and Gunsmoke and that kind of thing. But where I was from, there in Baxley, was a little bit like Mayberry. Opie, I guess, I'm trying to remember his name now, Opie's real name. is about my age, actually, so I could identify with some of the things we saw on TV and still watching the Ron Howard's his name. I knew he'd come to me. Some of the things that they went through reminded me of growing up in Baxley. Heck, I used to walk to practice. I played Little League baseball, and, it'd be practice would be at 4 o'clock, and I'd, either walk across town or get on my bike. So, see, my dad was great. I called him Buddy. His name was not Buddy, but he told me when I was a little fella, we were best buddies, would always be best buddies. So I called him Buddy. I said, I'll see you, buddy. I'm going to practice. I'd ride my bike across town, go to practice, ride it back home. And you couldn't do that nowadays, obviously for obvious reasons. But we did it back in the day. And, I wouldn't take anything for my upbringing. Heck, as a little boy, I played football. We did something every season. Played football in the fall, played basketball in the winter. We played baseball and ran track in the early spring and played baseball in the summer and did that until we didn't know any better, And in middle school, we integrated schools in 1971. And I don't want to say this the wrong way, but I think people will understand where I'm coming from. Back then, everybody was saying, well, how's this going to be? Our black kids and our white kids going to school together. What's that going to be? Man, I couldn't wait. I thought this will be great. Man, we're going to have all the white kids and the black kids. We're going to have a better team. We're going to have more kids out for football. We're going to have more kids on the baseball team, more kids to play with. So looking at it from a sports standpoint, I thought it was great. And we blended. We never had racial problems there. We blended and loved each other. And I remember as an eighth grader, we did something that no team in Appleton County history had ever done in football. We actually beat Wayne County. We beat them twice that year. And we thought we were pretty special. We thought we had a pretty special group of athletes there. And, again, we played basketball in the winter, ran track, played baseball in the summer, and then took that to high school. And the end of my sophomore year, Bob Griffith came to Appleton County, and he brought with him a philosophy of weightlifting. He was one of those coaches that believed. He came from Northside. Bob he played at Virginia Tech, and he had gone to Vietnam, served in combat in Vietnam. He had coached at Northside Warner Robinson. He came to see us and kind of introduced himself, and he brought one of the Northside players with him, had him demonstrate some of the exercises that we were going to be doing. And man, I was sold. From that point on, I was ready. And, I took the weights like a fish took the water. And, really, I've always believed that, strength training would help you be a better athlete. I didn't look at it as bodybuilding, and I didn't look at it as powerlifting. I looked at it, hey, this is going to make me a better football player. And that's kind of the way he approached it. And we believe that. And he, my first couple of years there, we struggled in football. But when he came in, he made us a winner. And we won. We turned our program around and beat some teams that we had not, we had the best record in the history of Appleton County High School my senior year. And we had our first ever regional weight competition. And we invited everybody in the region, which at that time was Ware County and Camden County and Fitzgerald and us. And I think there was Pierce County. At the time, it was Blackshear High School and several others. And I won the heavyweight division, won first place in the first weight competition I ever saw. I won it. And that has kind of followed me. I grew up a Georgia Tech fan. And I've had a lot of players go to Georgia, so I still love them. But I was a Georgia Tech fan in high school, and Tech recruited me, Georgia recruited me, Florida State. And I was one of those guys, in all honesty, was probably not good enough to go in high school to go Power 5 or big-time Division I. Georgia Tech offered me a chance, basically, if you get right down to it, to be a preferred walk-on. I had pretty good academics, and they had helped me to secure some academic scholarship money in textiles. If I majored in textiles, I got a lot of academic money. They had worked it out where I could basically eat on the training table, but I would not be officially on football scholarship. And I was offered a scholarship by Troy State, And I was Citadel wanted to offer me a scholarship, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but their SAT test requirements were a little higher than most, and I was just short of what they wanted. I thought, well, I'll take it again and be okay. I'll make it. And Bobby Ross at the time was head coach at Citadel, and Frank Beamer, who became a real famous coach at Virginia Tech, actually recruited me from the Citadel. But in the meantime, UT Martin called me, and they were, at the time, the Gulf South Conference. And they said, hey, we're going to offer you a full scholarship. You're one of our premier recruits. We think you can play as a freshman. And heck, Dad and I took a trip up there and, went over, went through Atlanta, then went over through Chattanooga, went through the Smokies there and got out there in West Tennessee, and they rolled out the West red carpet for us. And I thought, hey, I think this is where I want to be. So I went to UT Martin, and I played as a freshman. Would have played an awful lot. I had a little bit of a knee injury early, and they thought about redshirting me and doing a knee surgery, and I talked them out of it. I said, no, I had a floating. It was kind of a weird deal. I could do a squat, and you could see what looked like a marble sticking out of my leg. So something was floating around in there, and I told him, hey, it's getting better. I'll be fine. So I ended up coming out and playing an awful lot at the end of my freshman year, and then lettered and played in every game as a sophomore. And I was, just to be honest, I was 641 miles from home. It took me almost 12 hours to drive home. And Bobby Bowden had got to Florida State, and I wanted an opportunity to play Division I football, and they had recruited me some in high school. And it would have been a lot closer to home. And I reached out to them, let them know I was interested. So way back before NIL, way back before transfer portal, I was interested in transferring. And I ended up transferring to Florida State and loved it. I'm still a Seminole through and through. And, Gene McDowell had recruited me. And, of course, I learned so much from Coach Bowden. I was not a great player at Florida State. I was the strongest player on the team. I won the FSU Ironman Award. And then the next big competition we had, I finished third. The guy that beat me was named Ron Simmons. He got first. Y'all remember the great Ron Simmons.
Yeah, he was a different kind of animal.
He was the heavyweight wrestling champion of the world. And he was just ready when he got there. But I had a great parallel squad. I don't know. I just always had strong legs, had a decent bench and a good power clean, and that propelled me in positions where I was ranked number one for a long time. And then Ron beat me out, and a guy named Mike Good finished second. Mike Good was a big offensive lineman, and I was third. But I was always in the top three in terms of strength at Florida State. Got all kind of awards in the offseason and that kind of thing. And, loved my time as a Seminole and still love them. We had a tough year this year, and it was tough to watch. But I think we'll come back. But I knew, and I'm just rambling on here, but I knew early on. I remember one of the assistant coaches I had in high school was named Andy Henderson. And Andy was about 5'6", and Andy would go about 250. But man, he was a great athlete. He could, play basketball, badminton, just whatever you wanted to do. He'd beat you at it. He was one of those stocky guys that were just great athlete, had a great personality. And Andy became a challenge for a state championship years later at Pierce County. And I think he was principal up in Buford at one point. But anyway, this was early in his career. And he and I were walking together one day, changing classes. And he was always very interested in us. He said, well, what's in your future? And I said, Coach, I think I want to be a high school coach. I think I want to coach and teach. He said, man, you'd be great. I want to encourage you to do that. So from about 15 years old, that's kind of what I set my mind to do. And honestly, Chris, that's one of the reasons I decided not to go to Georgia Tech. I loved Georgia Tech and wanted to go there, but I knew that if I wanted to coach and teach, they did not offer physical education or anything of that nature. It had to have been some type of business ed or business. I'd had to have, actually it's called industrial management. I would have had to major in industrial management, then tried to go somewhere and get some type of education add on. And that would have made things more difficult. So that's one of the reasons I went to UT Martin. UT Martin was in the university system of Tennessee, and it was much like the university system of Georgia. So you had, you had about anything you wanted, and Florida State was the same way. So it was easy to go there and just major in physical education. I got a minor in driver's education. And then I graduated in 1980. We played in the 79 Orange Bowl. We played in the 77 Tangerine Bowl. We went 8-3 and didn't play in a bowl in 78. And in 79, it was actually, we were 11-0, played in the 80 Orange Bowl against Billy Sims, J.C. Watts, that bunch from Oklahoma. And that was our only loss. They beat us in the Orange Bowl that year. And I had made, I did my internship at Panama City Mosley High School. Guy that had been a graduate assistant at Florida State when I was there had coached me, actually. His name was George Dean. He became a very successful coach in South Georgia. He coached at Cook County, several places. George is an outstanding coach. But anyway, he saw me that I was looking. He said, why don't you come do your internship here? And they wouldn't let me. Florida State wouldn't let me go to Georgia to do it. So I thought, well, you know what? I couldn't find a better place to go than Panama City, Florida. So I went to Panama City Mosley High School, man, and did my internship for, I don't know, about 14 weeks there with George Dean and that bunch. And heck, I worked for him just like I was full-time on the staff. I mean, I'd help him run the weight room. We'd go to primary. We'd do everything, just like you were on the staff. And, I learned a lot, honestly, from George. And then, when I knew that I needed to find a job, and it was late in the year. It was in the spring of the year. And my first thought was I really wanted to coach for Bob Griffin. Bob had been my high school coach, and I just loved him, loved his philosophy, loved the way he did everything. And he, at the time, was at Colquitt County. And he wanted me. And Appling County wanted me, a guy named Kendall Keith, who had been a great player at Georgia. Kendall had been a great offensive lineman at Georgia, was actually from Wayne County, had contacted me. He wanted me to come to Appling County. The problem at Appling was he didn't have a PE slot. The only thing I was certified in was PE or driver's ed. And he was going to try to work it so maybe I'd teach out a field or something for a year. He really wanted me there. And I was very interested in going to Appling, but my first choice was to go with Coach Griff. I knew him, and I knew several of his assistant coaches. He had maintained that staff together. They had been in high school when I was in high school. And the only thing he had was a middle school job. And pride wouldn't let me do it. I said, no, I don't want to coach middle school. I just don't want to do that. I want to be a high school coach. I'm afraid if I get down on the middle school level, it'll be another step I've got to make to go to the high school level. So I had contacted, through Gene McDowell, contacted Bruce Bennett at Ware County. And Bruce had been an All-American player at Florida. Had been a safety and played at Valdosta, won state championship at Wright Bazemore, and had been a successful coach at Fernandina Beach. And then had come to Ware County, and like I said, was a great, great player at Florida. And he and I just really hit it off. And he hired me to be his offensive line coach. And I was a JV wrestling coach, and I worked in the weight room for him as well. And I liked him. I liked living in Waycross because of its proximity to Tallahassee. And one of my best friends lived in Jacksonville. We were only about an hour away from Jacksonville. And I enjoyed being able to go see him on the weekends and that kind of thing. And I knew most of the teams we competed against. At that time, there were two schools in Ware County. Ware County High, and then there was Waycross High School. And this is kind of a neat thing. Ware County had not beat Waycross in several years. And we were struggling at 3-5. And Waycross was number one team in the state and the defending state champions. So they were killing everybody. And we go to play Fitzgerald that year, who was really good. They were the next best team in the region on the road. And we were kind of downtrodden. And there was just a little running back named Larry Mortensen that had been primarily a backup to another guy we thought was probably a little bit better. And we started playing Larry, and he was a little short guy, and they couldn't find him. We'd hand him the ball, and they could not tackle him. And he scored about 5 touchdowns against Fitzgerald, and we beat them. Big upset. And we gained a lot of momentum, and we played Waycross High in Memorial Stadium there that year. Again, they're the big favorite. We're a 4-5 team, not going to the playoffs. They're the defending state champions, and odds on they're going to win it again. You know, and that dadgum little Larry Mortensen ran all over them. And I've never seen a group, I don't think, rise up and play like champions like we did that night. And we beat Waycross 16-0. Shut them out. Just beat them like a drum. And I'll always remember this. The very next day, I went down to Jacksonville and watched Georgia play Florida. The night before the Georgia-Florida game we played. And it was the buck below to Lindsey Scott, big catch that he made to propel Georgia to win that game. So it was a good weekend for me. We beat the number 1 team in the state on Friday night, and watched Georgia beat Florida on Saturday. And it was a big, big, big weekend, obviously. But I wanted to be a head coach. I'd studied and worked and wanted to do that. And at the time, Griff, who I called him Griff, Coach Griffith, Bob Griffith, left Colquitt and came to Effingham. And he called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to Effingham. I'd like for you to come." And I thought, well, I like it here at Ware County. I like Coach Bennett, but I've always wanted to coach with him. And I had just started dating Angela, who would eventually be my wife. And I thought, well, let me, he said, well, come on over here and see what's there. So I went and got around him and Buddy Sorrow and Dwayne Newland and Max Braun, and I knew all those guys real good, and it was going to be a real, he said, you can come in here and be my strength coach. You can be my offensive line coach, kind of a co-offensive coordinator, and you can start a track program. They don't have it. You'll be the track coach. I thought, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And I came to Effingham, and man, you talk about, at the time, Effingham's a great place now. Effingham, in fact, Rankin, where I live, was voted by one publication as being the best place to live in the state of Georgia because of its proximity to Savannah, I-16, and I-95, and the growth that's here with the Hyundai plant and Pooler and all of that. But back in those days, it was considered Savannah River Swamp, man. I mean, it was way back in the business. And they did not have a great football tradition. And to give Griff credit, he built a pretty good little program here, a very, very good program here. We struggled our first year, I think, with 2-8. And then, we just kept working and we turned it around and made it into the playoffs. And coincidentally, the team that beat us in the playoffs was Washington County. I didn't know I'd go there and be the head coach for a long time. And that's where I kind of got to know them. But I started looking, the most important thing that happened to me when I first got this job, I was dating Angela, and, we got married. I came here, and she was still living with her parents and then working. She's working in Jacksonville. And we were going to rent a little, head basketball coach was named Jim Long. He'd been here 20-some-odd years. He was a veteran coach then. And he had a nice house, and behind his house, he had a garage apartment, bathroom, living room, bedroom, and all that. And then he had a big pool out there. And I thought, man, that'd be great. We'll live in the garage apartment. Angela have free access to the pool. We go out and lay out by the pool with old Jim. He's a good old guy. He's not going to charge me much money. I'll work, coach football, be a great life, And a friend of mine was living up in Charleston, and he and his wife got a starter loan and bought a brand new house. And we had visited them. We'd gone up and visited them at several times. And I thought, I just wondered, heck, if I could buy a house, maybe I could, instead of renting, put equity in my house. So I looked around, and they were building a tract of houses here in Effingham, brand new. They were FHA, Farmers Home Administration. And the guy encouraged me to apply for a loan. He said, these are going to be hard to come by. Now, if you qualify, you're going to want to get one of these. They were brand new, all brick homes. They were small homes, only 1,100 square feet, but they were beautiful, all brick. So I applied and I qualified by $5. Qualified by $5. So we bought a house here. And it was a good move because when we sold that house, that enabled us to have equity and buy the houses we had from then on. Now, we would have probably loved living in Jim Long's garage apartment now, to be honest with you, but I think it did help us financially to buy our first house. But we got married in July, and Angela moved up here with me and moved in a brand new house, a brand new small home, and we coached here with Griff and learned a lot. I've been going on and on. You want to jump in there and ask me anything, man, before I keep going?
No, Coach, you're doing great. I usually go, and then where'd you go?
Yeah,
What happened after that?
I just knew, like I said, from the time I was 15 years old, I wanted to be a head coach. And I talked with Griff about it. Now, Griff was a great mentor. Griff was wise beyond his years. And I told him, I said, Griff, I love you. I love being here with you, man. I'm happy. But I do want to be a head coach one day. And he said, well, Rick, you might want to look around and ask me. He said, you got a job here. He said, I want you here. He said, but a lot of coaches look for years and years and years and don't have an opportunity to be a head coach. So go ahead and look. And I talked with two people. I talked with Jeff Davis, high school in Hazelhurst. And I love those people now. Now let me clarify something from what I'm about to say about them. My high school roommate, my college roommate at Florida State, Mike Stewart was from Jeff Davis. I love Mike. He and I were like brothers. And we grew up playing Jeff Davis, big rivalry. And so I felt like people in Hazelhurst, Jeff Davis, were basically family. They were practically home folks. Well, because of that, I talked with them and applied at Jeff Davis, and I applied at Little Troutland High School in Soperton. Well, when I went to Jeff Davis, and I don't know any other way to say this, they treated me like I was some young kid that was still wet behind the ears. Yeah, you're an assistant coach. You're just not ready yet. We're going to go with a man that's got head coaching experience. You ain't there yet, Rick. Basically, that's what they said. And Troutland, the superintendent's name was Gary Walden. And he and I just hit it off. And I remember him looking at me real hard, and he what-ifed me. What are you going to do with your assistants? What are you going to do about the JV program? What are you going to do about the middle school program? Heck, man, I just shared my vision with him. I just poured it right out. And I talked with him about the strength program, about getting kids out. I said, man, I'm going to walk the halls. If they can walk and chew bubble gum, I'm going to ask them to play. I'm not going to take no for an answer. We're going to get them out there. And I'm going to encourage them to come out and be in the weight program. We're going to develop them. We're going to make them bigger, faster, stronger. We're going to get them out there. And I think it'll help. And he bought in, thank God. And he asked me to come be their coach. And I took the job at Troutland High School. And we lost our first 3 games. We started off at Lyons High School, and this is a funny deal here now, kind of an eerie deal. My first 3 jobs as a head coach, I scored the first play of the game. The first play I ever called was a touchdown. We scored first against the Lyons. It was Lyons High at the time. They're Toombs County now. And we fought. They outlasted us. They were a division bigger than us. They were double A. We were single A. And they beat us, but everybody kept talking. I never thought there was much comfort in losing. They were like, man, y'all fought your butt off. Man, y'all played hard in the fourth quarter. Man, you'd like to have won that game. And then our second game, we played East Lawrence, and a guy named Shelnup was head coach. They were a bigger school. We go up there and got beaten a real close game. Just a super close game. And then our third game was against Metter. And Metter was really good at the time. We played them over in Metter and, again, fought real hard, and they beat us in a real close game. And we're sitting there at 0-3. And you're talking about having a gut check now, Chris. And I'm thinking, dang, I've never won a game as head coach. We got Savannah Country Day coming in here. And my starting quarterback and one of my best defenders and a lineman missed a practice. And I told him, I said, you're not going to play in the first half. Man, was that a dadgum unpopular decision. Hadn't won a game. young coach, first job. Well, they came in there. Our little old guys fought their butts off, and I did let those guys play in the second half, and we won 28-7. And then we put together a string of a very good year and won some games. I think we won 6 games, and just had a really good year and had almost everybody back. We only had 2 or 3 seniors, had them all coming back, and we had when I got there, they had the stakes staked out for a new small kind of a back steel kind of building for a field house. And the sheriff at the time became a legendary sheriff in that area. Well, they had an old Universal machine across town, and it was broke down. It's about like something you and I probably use, or I used in high school. I'm older than you are. He helped me move that Universal machine into the new little field house. And I had a boy on my team named Neil Gillis. And I told that this is in the summer before our first season. And I asked him one day, we got together and we were doing some agility, some push-ups and sit-ups and some pull-ups and anything I could think of, without weights to get them ready. This is in the preseason. So one day I said, how many of you got weights at home? And, I had about 10 or 12 raised their hand. I said, well, bring whatever you got. You don't mind us using it, just bring everything you got. And so they did, and I put together something we call the Big Five. Griff called it the Big Five, and that's something that, if you remember, a famous coach from Georgia named Wayne McDuffie from Hawkinsville, and he played at Florida State and played in the NFL. He had kind of taught Griff the Big Five. So we started doing the Big Five, and it was basically the power clean, the deadlift, the high pull, the clean and jerk, and the squat. And we'd do it all right there in the room, what weights we had. I'd line them up and have 5 bars, and we'd have 3 or 4 to a group, and we'd go on command and get after it. And I started reading and looking at bigger, faster, stronger. And the kids just heard me say, hey, listen, one day we're going to have us a weight room. One day we're going to get a good weight room, and we're going to make that a real premium. One day out of the blue, one of the players' mamas called me. Her name was Marie Gillis. And I didn't know it at the time, but if you've ever been on I-16 from Macon to Savannah, that's Jim L. Gillis Highway. Mm-hmm. It's named after her daddy. And she said, Coach T, Neil said you need some weights. I said, yes, ma'am, we do. We do need some weights. We're lifting on this weights we're bringing from home right now, but we could use some weights. She said, well, how much weight do you need, Coach? I said, well, we need some benches and some bars. And she said, well, I'll tell you what you do. You get me a price. You go you talk to your weight manufacturer and get me a price, and I'll see what I can do. And I was like a daggum kid at Christmas. I said, heck yeah, man. So I called Bigger, Faster, Stronger. I said, hey, here's what I need. Give me the best price delivered you can. And I called Miss Gillis. I said, okay. And I thought, she's not going to. There ain't no way. She's not. And, of course, at the time, it wasn't that much. And I was thinking, what will she allow me to get, So I called him, and I called her back, and I said, I got this price. Bigger, faster, stronger. It'll get us started pretty good. And she said, well, how much is it, Coach? And I told her, she said, order it. Get it. I'll stand for it. You order it. I thought, heck yeah, man. So I ordered it from Bigger, Faster, Stronger. We put it in there, man. And, man, we got after it. Now, that little weight room was used. I'm going to tell you. I'll even say this. And they saw that. We lifted and lifted and lifted and had a pretty good year that year. Then we lifted over the holidays, I'd go have it open. We lifted Thanksgiving Day, and I won't never forget, we had 8 kids come in on Christmas Day. And we lifted Christmas Day. And I said, I'm telling you, man, they may outsmart me as a head coach. They're not going to lift more weights than we are. We're going to be the strongest team we play. And they bought into that. I tell them all the time, I say, you're head coach. I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy out there, but we're going to do 2 things. We're going to be strong, and we're going to be in shape. They're going to beat us. They're going to have to really pay the price. And, I could have stayed at Trooper a long time. And it's, at the time, Coach, it was a little bit embarrassing to me, but because I've always been a loyal guy. But, I was rocking along here. I had set the season, the schedule for the next year. I had to inherit that first schedule But I got a chance to make the schedule the second year. We were going to play some good teams. I was excited about what we were going to do. And Griff called me one day. He was at Effingham. He called and he said, Rick, is the athletic director from Chatham County called you? I said, no, why would he be calling me? And he said, well, they're looking for a head coach at Jenkins High School in Savannah. And he asked me, did I know of anybody that might be interested or who might be the best qualified coach? And he said, I gave him your name. And he's going to call you. And I thought, at the time, I said, I don't think I'm interested in that because I'm happy here at Truman High School. And I got to thinking about it. Living in Savannah, I'm in Little Soperton, Georgia, a little Class A school, and my wife's from Jacksonville. She's used to the city, and Savannah would be a little more like Jacksonville, a little bit more like what she was used to. And when I was at Effingham as an assistant, we played Jenkins and Benedictine and some of the schools in the Groves, some of the Bradwell, some of the schools in this area. I'm familiar with them. It would be jumping from Class A. And then at the time, the highest class was 4A. It'd be jumping to 4A. So I thought, well, heck, I might be interested in that. They called me and asked me to come interview, and I did. And the principal's name was Don Stewart. And coincidentally, my roommate at Florida State was his cousin. Mike Stewart was Don's cousin. We roomed together at Florida State. And he offered me the job, and I accepted, and I came to Jenkins. And Jenkins High in Savannah, HV, Herschel V. Jenkins High School. And again, we moved and bought a house there and tried to do the same thing, got as many out as we could and really made a premium in the weight room and tried to hire good coaches and that kind of thing. And, Savannah's a great place to live, wonderful, wonderful place to live. And Mr. Stewart was a great principal. He and I were great together. We had some real obstacles there at Jenkins. Number one, you were basically a double-A school playing in a 4A league. All the schools there opted to play up because of travel. So if you got into the playoffs, you were probably going to play somebody that had quite a bit more in terms of enrollment than you did. Secondly, there were a lot of schools here. You go look at all the schools in Savannah, Chatham County, Savannah had been at the time a big private school town. I mean, you had Benedictine, you had Savannah Christian, you had Calvary, you had Country Day, you had Memorial, you had Bible Baptist. You had a lot of schools there that, recruited athletes out of middle schools and the rec program. So you had to hope you'd get what you were supposed to get. And back in those days, they still bust kids. And again, I don't want to say anything wrong here, but you got your white kids from one side of town and you get your black kids from another side of town. I never quite understood that. That's the way it was at Jenkins. And another obstacle we had on top of the normal eligibility, they had had some issues with eligibility the year before, and they had to let 3 coaches or 4 coaches go in the public school. That's why this job was open. And it involved eligibility. There's a big story there. People can research that, but I'll just skim it. So they passed a rule that if you're going to participate in athletics, not only do you have to be eligible by Georgia high school standards, but you got to carry a 2.0 grade point average. In other words, you got to have C average, which is not necessarily the way it is with Georgia high school. So you had all those things, plus the facilities were not great. It was an inner city school. But I talked them into an old bus. We had an old bus there that, we were worried about kids coming for spring practice and coming for the summer. And I said, well, summer, let's just go get them. And we'll get them on the bus. We'll run a bus, a route like we used to at Effingham. Bob Griffith taught me that. Let's just go get them. So me and the coaches would get our CDL. We had to get our CDL. We'd get on that old raggedy old bus, and we'd go all the way through, the areas where our kids came from. And some of them were rough areas and some of them wasn't. And we'd pick the kids up and bring them to practice. And after practice, we'd take them all home. And we worked really, really hard. And, we came out of the block strong, beat Johnson real bad. And then we beat a really good team, beat Bradwell, shut Bradwell out. And then we lost a couple of games that really hurt. We played Windsor and had them beat. I mean, they're beat. The game's over. It's the whistle blown. It's over. And we win. I think it's 12-8. We didn't play very good. Just one of those games we played horrible. And I'm walking across the field to shake the coach's hand. And I said, well, there's a flag on the last play. I thought, what? And yeah, we got to replay the last play. So as fate would have it, they scored that daggum touchdown.
Oh, no.
They beat us 14 to 12. And man, that was hard to swallow. Man, I had to go. I was coach of the week against the Bradwell, and I had the player of the game. We had to go to the touchdown club meetings that haven't just lost the game. And I don't know if people out there, it's insane the way you feel when you lose. It is. It's insane. You feel like you've got a death in the family. And back in the day, I mean, I just put all the blame on my shoulders. I always felt like, you know what, we'd have won if I'd have done a better coaching job. We'd have won if I'd have called a better game. We'd have won if I hadn't worked them quite as hard as I worked. I mean, I'm thinking, oh, man, it's me. It's not those kids. It's me. And you just feel like it's ridiculous. You feel that terrible. That's how I felt that whole week. We played Savannah High. We had to go to Grayson Stadium, which was the first time they played in Grayson Stadium in a long time. Played on Saturday night. We get there. They put us in the long locker room. So we got to go change locker rooms right before the game and move everything. And just was completely discombobulated. And we got beat there. So we're 2-2. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know. Everybody's asking questions like, I just don't know about this new guy. I don't know. But we put on and we won about 6 straight and played great. And we played Benedictine the last game of the year. They were really, really, really good. Jim Walsh was the head coach there. And we just played super and played in Memorial Stadium. And it was like a state championship environment. It was a packed house. I don't, all the state championship games I've ever played in, they're all great environments, almost electric. Well, this was like, it was electric. Jenkins and Benedictine had been big rivals. And as it turned out, we're tied. It's 21-21. We go into overtime, and we're in the second overtime period, and we're winning. We're winning. We're winning the game. And we had a fumble, and all they had to do was snap it and then take a knee. They snapped it and ran out the clock, took a knee, and they beat us on 4 yards of penetration. Back then, that's how they determined the winner, was we went on penetration. And we were in the playoffs, but we lost to Benedictine and had a great year. And I will say the following year, one thing I'm proud of, everybody beat us. Windsor Forest, shut them out. Savannah High, shut them out. Benedictine, shut them out. We got them all. I've always been one of those guys who got a real good memory, Chris. Maybe that's a curse. I don't know. I remember those butt kickings I took, man, and I worked a little extra for those teams. We beat the teams that beat us the year before. And, no disrespect to Jenkins or Savannah. Like I said, I had a great principal, and Jenkins, it was a great location. I had aspirations. I felt like the mentality was, let's just be good in Savannah. We'll probably not win the region. We'll probably never be a state champion. Let's just try to be a good team in Savannah. And I struggled and fought that mentality. And we had a young athletic director there. I was not the athletic director there. That was from New Jersey. That he was probably a great guy. Man, he and I butted heads. We butted heads about the bus, go pick the kids up and bring them back. I mean, just about everything I'd do, he would disagree with. And I just thought, I got to get the heck out of here. I've had enough of this. I've had enough. I'm going to find somewhere to go. And I ended up talking with Jonesboro High School in Clayton County, out of Clayton County, Jonesboro, I guess it's North Georgia now. But, I really had preferred to stay in South Georgia. But at that time, Jonesboro had good facilities, good place. And Fred Smith offered me the job. I go there. I'm the head football coach. I'm the athletic director, which I was not the athletic director of Jenkins. And I thought, well, this will be a better deal. And the only problem was they were 0-10 the year before. And not only were they 0-10, they didn't get beat. They got beat the heck out of. They played Griffin, LaGrange, Noonan, teams like that, Morrow, Riverdale, and boy, they just got raked over the coals. But again, we went to work, and I had a guy that played for me named Vance Turpin. And we played a spring game against, I think it was North Cobb. And back then, you could play a game. We played a whole game. Now, Jonesboro hadn't won a game in a couple of years. We beat the heck out of them. I mean, we scored about 40 points on them. Everybody's saying, well, darn, they may be okay. And we played our first game, and again, we won about 47-7. Played a team from, it was another one, maybe in South, one of the Cobb County schools. And our second game, we played Henry County, and I had a player, like I mentioned earlier, named Vance Turpin. Now, I'm going to tell you what, Herschel Walker may be the greatest player in the history of football. And Takeo Spikes played for me, and I know what Takeo Spikes looked like with his shirt off. Well, Vance Turpin looked like Takeo Spikes. He looked like a seasoned bodybuilder. He's about 6'2", 210, 212, chiseled out of daggum granite. I mean, chiseled. And I thought, dang, I can't believe they can't win games with this kid. And I put him at tailback, and you talking about giving a guy the ball, we fed it to him. And that big stud in our first game had 5 touchdowns. I mean, we let him return kicks, let him do it, and he just ran all over everybody. He loved it. He kept saying, Coach, give me the ball. We'd feed it to him. I think his first game, he had about 250 yards. The second game, we were leading 15-0 at halftime, killing them. And there was a play right before half. He's running down the sideline. He got hit right on the sideline. And he goes down, and he gets up, and the doctor says, Coach, I think he's blowing his knee out. I thought, man, don't tell me that. Well, it was. He was gone. And, yeah, great player. But we struggled and held on and kind of – we ended – LaGrange won the state championship that year, and they beat the heck out of us up at LaGrange. But we fought and had a pretty fair year. And then our second year there, we won, had a great season, went to the playoffs. We beat Morrow won the state championship that year, and they played us twice. They told us we were the toughest team they'd played all year, but we beat Noonan in Noonan, Max Bass, great program. Played Griffin real close at Griffin. Played LaGrange real close. We lost to Griffin, LaGrange, and Morrow, which I ain't too bad at the time. Morrow again being state champions, and then I was there another year. We had a pretty fair year. And we had Tiffany, my daughter, and Angela's family was from Jacksonville. And my family obviously was from Baxley. We're up there south, metro Atlanta, in Jonesboro. And I thought, I'd like to be a little closer because when we'd go home to Jacksonville, see Angela's family, it was 5.5 hour drive. And again, when you got a baby, that changes things. The grandparents want to see the baby. We'd go home to Baxley, it's about 3.5 hour drive. And I'd been there 3 years, and again, I loved it. I loved Mr. Smith. I loved being the athletic director. Rick Duncan was the head coach in basketball. And we started a study hall program, which helped our athletes. And we won the state bench press competition, the first state competition that I know of. We had at Jonesboro. We won the state competition that year, and it felt like we were building something pretty good. Well, I applied at two jobs, 2 places. I applied at Dublin High School. They did not give me an interview. They didn't even call me and tell me they were interested. And I applied at Lowndes High School. They called me and interviewed me and gave me the job. Can you believe that? Gave me the job at Lowndes. And one day, Chris, you might have to help me with this. One day I'm going to write a book, man. I'm going to write a book about my experiences there.
You need
Lowndes
to.
and Valdosta and Washington County. Because I don't have time on your program and this podcast to tell you everything that happened at Lowndes. The only thing I'll tell you is it's the most unique experience. People wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. John Nelson is what GPTV knows. He understands some of it, but it was just incredible. First of all, I'm not sure I was qualified to go to that school. Joe Wilson had been there, and a very, very famous older coach, had worked with Wright Bazemore, and he had won the state championship there in 1980 and very, very well liked. And he had struggled his last couple of years and he had stepped down. And they had talked to some really big names that were better coaches than me now, more famous coaches. They had talked to some really great coaches like Robert Davis at Warner Robins and, just a lot of great coaches. And, again, I tried to share my vision with them. And I probably was not their first choice. I think their first choice was actually a guy named Mike Pittman from Live Oak, who had won several state championships in Live Oak. And when Mike didn't take it or whatever happened there, I'm not sure what happened, they offered a job to Butch Brooks, who was at the time at Washington Wilkes. And he had been an assistant offensive coordinator for Wright Bazemore at Valdosta. And that didn't work out. I think I was actually third, and they offered me the job. And they called me and told me how much money they were going to pay me. And I thought, heck yeah, I'm coming, man. You got me. I'm coming. It was about double my pay, actually. And when I told Angela what I was going to pay, she said, you get paid. She said, you're kidding, it wasn't much. In today's world, it wasn't much. But at that time, I mean, man, we were barely making it. We didn't do anything. We didn't go on vacation. We didn't do anything. We were struggling to make it. And Lowndes were actually going to pay a little bit more money than I was used to paying. But how to delicately put this, to say that was a political hotbed would be the grossest understatement in the world. I think whoever they had hired then, whether it had been Butch or whether it had been Pittman or whether it had been Robert Davis, I think whoever had gone in then, it would have been a real challenge. I'm not saying they couldn't have done it, but it would have been a challenge. There were some real divisions there. The touchdown club didn't like the superintendent. He didn't like the touchdown club. They hired a brand new principal, and they were leery of him. And it was just a divided mess, and every decision hung in balance. And we struggled our first year there, and then we won 6 games my second year there, and that kind of bought us a little bit of time. The third year there, we won 7 games, and we lost the 3 games we lost. We lost to Valdosta. We lost to Hawkwood in overtime. And Valdosta had been the state champion the previous year. Hawkwood won it that year, but we lost to them in a real close game at Colquitt County in overtime, and we lost to Tifton at Tifton. That was our 3 losses. And they let me go, and they told me that they were going to go elsewhere for the head coach. And I thought, man, I've really, boy, this is a tough go. I mean, I considered a lot of things at that point. I thought, well, do I need to get out of coaching? I was head coach at Lowndes, system head coach. We had 2 middle schools that were under me and had a great staff. I didn't teach classes other than our strength training classes. And, one thing I'm proud of, my last faculty meeting with the teachers, they gave me a standing ovation at Lowndes, standing ovation. And when the kids found out I'd been let go, they walked out of class. They left class, went to the stadium. And I had to go to the stadium and tell them to go back to class. I said, y'all please go back to class. You're getting me in trouble. And they did. They went back to class, but they walked, I don't know, 2,000 kids sitting in the stadium, walked out of class. And, I really thought at that time, man, I don't know where I'm going to go. And that's the story I was telling you, I think, before we started our interview. I didn't have time to really apply anywhere. Lamar Binion from Washington County called me. And he said, Rick, I'm the principal here, and I'm the head football coach. I've taken this job the last 2 years, and I really don't want to be the head coach. I just want to be the principal. He said, will you come interview? And I said, yes, sir, I will. And I had coached against Washington County as an assistant coach at Effingham. And it's like you and I were saying before we started, I knew they had good athletes there. And we had gone to the region track meet there, and I was the head track coach. So I knew something about Sandersville. I knew something about the school, and I knew that depending on how you look at it, it could either be a good location or maybe it's a little bit isolated, but you're about an hour from Macon, you're about an hour from Augusta. And, there was a private school there, Brentwood, that, had a pretty good program. And it's, as you well know, Chris, that's the home of, it's the kaolin capital of the world. They mine more kaolin there than
White
anywhere in the
gold.
world. White gold. There you go, brother. And here's what sold me. I got Angela, and we go up there, and we get there, and we walk into the office, and Lamar Binion walks outside to meet me. He's got a big smile on his face. And he said, Rick, you are not here to interview. We're not going to interview you. We're going to convince you this is where you and Angela need to come. We're going to convince you this is where you need to be. And honestly, he had me right from there. I thought, you know what? I don't know if I've ever had a principal tell me that before. And it was almost like Troutland. It reminded me so much of Troutland, and I love Troutland County. He walked me outside and showed me they had the pegs down, had it marked off where they were going to build a brand new field house. And it was about 3 times bigger than the one at Troutland. And then he said, no, this is going to be the weight room. And it was gigantic. It had a big, tall ceiling. It was just beautiful. It's going to be beautiful. He said, this is going to be your weight room. And we know you're a weight guy. We want you to start a really good strength program here. And he said, well, I want you to start as soon as you can. I said, okay, I think I can get out of my contract at Lowndes, and Angela will stay and sell the house, and I'll come up here. He said, we'll find you a place to stay, and you can stay here and get started with your program. He said, there's only one catch. He said, you're coming, and we're going to have you in PE, and you're going to be the athletic director. But the current athletic director is Alfred Carson, legendary basketball coach, women's basketball coach, won multiple state championships, and he's not retiring until June. He's holding a teaching spot now. So until June, we don't have a teaching spot for you, so you're going to have to go to the middle school and teach for the rest of this year. This was like in February or March, not this time of the year. That's okay. I can do that for part of the year. That's okay. So when I got to the middle school, the principal's name was Bern Anderson. Love him to death. You're talking about a guy that took care of a guy. He really helped me out. Just a gem of a guy, gem of a coach. And but the problem was I had to teach 6 reading classes to behavior disordered children. That was what I had to teach when I first got there. I had an old middle school teaching 6 reading classes to behavior disordered children. And I got there and started doing that. And I'm thinking, man, I have stepped off the mountain. I left Lowndes High School. That stadium set 13,555 people. I'm system athletic director. I don't teach a class. I coached Randall Godfrey, Jeff Thomas, and some great players. And here I am at this old broke down middle school teaching 6 reading classes to behavior disordered children. But see, I think the Lord works in mysterious ways. I didn't know that right down the road that I had Takeo Spikes, Robert Edwards, Terrence Edwards, George Eck, those guys ready to go. I didn't know our first 3 years there we were going to go 41-3, and we were going to win the state championship and go 15-0. Might have been the greatest team in the history of high school football. I didn't know all that. All I knew was, man, we're facing a challenge. Our first day of spring practice, we get out there on the field, and we're doing some specialty. You know what special is. When you snap and kick and all that. Nobody knew how to punt. So I drafted about 5 players. I said, hey, listen, I'm going to teach y'all how to punt. We got to find a punter. So we go out there and we're going to punt. And I will never forget, Chris, the first time they tried to punt, all 5 of them missed the ball. They couldn't, none of them kick a ball. All 5 of them missed. I thought, dadgum. But one thing that gave me a little hope. One thing gave me some hope. We did specialty, and we got them together and divided into 3 groups. We had an offensive group. We did an Oklahoma drill. You know what Oklahoma is. We had 3 groups. We had the dummies down. Then we had a blocker and a defender. Then we had a receiver and defensive back and a ball carrier. And you're trying to evaluate who's going to pass the lick. Who's going to come off the block and make a tackle? Who's going to throw a block? Who's going to run hard? And we started practice with Oklahoma. We'd do one group, then we'd turn around and do the other group, then we'd turn around and do another, then start back the first one again. And I've never seen kids respond like they did. They thought we had invented a new way of practicing football. They thought, man, this is great. We're out here getting after it, man. This is great. And I mean, they would pass a lick and cheer and holler. And I thought, oh, these old guys may be okay, you know. And after practice, they were saying, Coach T, we're going to do this tomorrow. We're going to do Oklahoma tomorrow. I said, yeah, we're going to do it tomorrow. So you know, I thought, these little boys like to hit. We may be okay. And dadgum, if we didn't start out the block, like I said, the first play I called that year was a touchdown. And we beat the heck out of Dublin. I mean, we beat them convincingly. And we won 14 straight. Won 14 straight games. And we go down and play Mitchell Baker in the state championship. Now, this was before you played in the Dome. You had to play at somebody's home field at the time. And we played in Camilla against Jack Johnson and Mitchell Baker and played hard. They were really good. They had a running back. We went to Texas, and they had a quarterback, Rayleigh, I think was his name, that had set all kind of Georgia passing records. And it was 12-10 with 4 minutes to go in the game. They were leading, and we were driving. And we had a little deal we'd do where we'd check off with our receivers where the guy was going to run a slant or a takeoff or an out, and the receivers and quarterback had a signal. And we miscommunicated, and their DB jumped around and picked it and scored. And then they got the ball back and scored again, and ended up beating us 27-10 in the state championship game. And old Jack was great. And I don't know if y'all know Jack. He was just great. Man, you've done a good job. Just, you know, he'd lose to anybody, but Jack and I were both from Macklin County, so he was just great. And the next year, we went 12-2, and we beat Dublin in let me back up now. First time Dublin beat us. We beat Greene County in regular season. Beat them 25-10, 25-11, something like that. And then we played Mary Persons and beat them about 2 touchdowns. And the state would have, we always got bad luck on the darn draw. I've never been lucky at all on the draw. In the third round, the semifinal of the playoffs, this is before the Dome, now, the year before they started playing in the Dome, we had to go to Mary Persons. Now, we played Mary Persons 11 times when I was at Waco. 14 years out there, played 11 times, beat them 10. That's the only time they beat us. We played in the rain. It was 13-13. And we're winning on penetration. And then they got the ball, and we caused the fumble. We jumped on it. We got the ball. We thought, all we got to do is run out the clock. It's our game. Well, he ruled it wasn't a fumble. They ended up beating us on penetration. They go play Greene County, the team we'd beaten earlier in the year, for the state championship, and they win. I'm sorry, Greene County won. Greene County beat them. And we were the region champions, and Greene County was in our region. And I thought, man, that should have been our state championship. That should have been us. That should have been us that won that game. And it just left a real negative taste in our mouth. And Taquillo Spikes came to me when we were training after that game, and he said, Coach, whatever it takes, we'll run as much as we need to run. We'll lift as much as we need to lift. We want to be state champions. And there were a few people that were saying, we've only been there 2 years. Well, they can't win the big game and all. So we used all that for fuel. And I'm going to tell you what now, I don't know if we were the greatest team in history. I would argue we were probably the best team in AA history because we scored 641 points that year and kind of broke the all-time state scoring record almost by accident. And I'm going to tell you now, it could have been a lot worse than that. I mean, we'd be leading 49-0 at half, 55-0 at half, and we'd play our JV. And what a lot of people don't remember, we won. We were undefeated about 10 years in a row on the JV level. We won an incredible number of games on the JV level every year, developing those guys. And we'd bring that little JV in the second half. You know, you could play 6 quarters a week. So you could play a 4-quarter JV game and then play 2 quarters in the varsity game. We'd bring that little bunch of JV boys in there in the second half, and they would kick butt. You talk about getting after somebody now. They'd get after it. And like I said, we scored 641 points. We won the state championship, we beat Mary Persons in a real famous game 1 year afterward. And Dan Pitts at Mary Persons. They beat us the year before. Next year, we played them there and had a sellout crowd. People were in the trees. They were up on the hill. They were up in the trees. Probably I think it was the most attended game in AA history. I think the history will say that. And we won the game. That was 35-13 there, and it was Dan Pitts' last game he ever coached. And then we went on to play Scriven, John Connolly, in the state championship. They had Andre Grace at I-back and a big old tight end that went to Georgia. Was a good player, and we ended up beating them 35-7 in the state championship game. And just a great that our slogan that year was "Knock down the door" in '94. Well, we were bound and determined to kick down the door to the state championship. I will never forget too. We take that little bunch of guys from Washington County, and for the first year we played in the Georgia Dome, the semifinal, and we played Carrollton. We're 13-0. Carrollton's 13-0. And, they play a game before you play, obviously. We played a 3:00 game on Saturday. And we're there in the tunnel getting ready to run. And we run out, and the Carrollton band's right over us. And, man, they put out sound. It was great. It was great, but it was just like a college band. And here you got these little old young men from Washington County. It reminded me of the movie Hoosiers. When they first got to the state championship game and you had the guy measure the goal from the floor. You remember that movie? Where he said, I want you to measure the goal. It's the same size it is at home in Hickory. And he told the guy on the radio, them playing here is kind of like me and you going to the moon. Well, that's the way it was. That was it. That was the Washington County kids playing in the Georgia Dome. Heck, man, we dressed in the Atlanta Falcons locker room. And an interesting story about that game. We played Carrollton. And Ben Scott was a great guy, great promoter, great coach. Ben's passed away now, but he had made the statement, we're going to take them out to deep water and see if they can swim back. Well, that motivated our players. And the first series, they had the ball, and we stopped them, and they punted to us. And I had a little boy on our team. He's a grown man now. So, at the time, he was a senior, but when I got there, he was a sophomore. His name was Chris Colbert. And we had been practicing when he was a sophomore. And as a coach, one of the toughest things you got to do is find a manager or find managers. Find people that will help you clean up the equipment, get water, keep water going, and everything a manager does. Kind of help start one. He does a zillion things. It's hard to get kids to want to do it because really all you can do is offer them a letter and let them get in the game for you and travel with the team, be a teammate. You really can't pay them anything, and not many people want to do it. So we were in need of a manager, and I thought, Chris Colbert's a little bitty fella. He's probably going to be JV only. I'll call him in and ask him would he want to be the manager and not play, just be the manager and get all the accolades the teammates get, the players get, but just be a manager. He happened to be in the weight room, and I was down in my office, so I called him. I said, Chris, come here, man, I'll talk to you. He come running down the hall to me, big smile on his face, come jogging up to me. Yes, sir, Coach, what you need? And I lost my guts. I just couldn't do it. I said, I just wanted you to know you're doing a great job, and I'm proud of you, son. You understand that? He said, yes, sir, Coach. So I said, you go on back to this place. I couldn't tell him I wanted to be a manager. And I'm glad I didn't, because on that first series against Carrollton, he's our punt returner. He's back deep. Carrollton punts to him, and he puts a Deion Sanders move on the guy and brings that son of a gun back 60 yards for a touchdown in the Georgia Dome. And one thing I like to tell people that was just super about that year, there were 2 punt returns in the Georgia Dome for touchdowns. Little Chris Colbert from Washington County had a punt return, and Deion Sanders returned one for the Atlanta Falcons in the Georgia Dome.
That's awesome.
He's in pretty good company there. He's in pretty good company. Again, I'm glad I wasn't stupid and asked him to be a manager. But I think we were known for our weightlifting. GPTV would come in, and the Atlanta Journal at that time was really good to us. Now, they kind of adopted us. Heck, we were in the middle of nowhere, little old bitty town, little hard blue collar town. They'd come in there and we'd be lifting weights, and they'd be it all. I won't never forget they come in there with a camera crew one night, and I must have had 80 of them in there getting after it on command. And we had the air conditioners on, but they were killing it. The daggum walls were sweating. They kept filming. I remember a guy coming to me and said, I've never seen anything like that in my life. I've never seen kids lift like that in my life. Never seen anything like it. So we kind of developed a reputation of being a group that would really, really, really get after it in the weight room and being in good shape, playing good defense. And our philosophy, Chris, was exactly what the Eagles were Sunday. I mean, that was us. We put a premium on defense. We put a premium on being in great shape, being strong, put a premium, our best, when we evaluated players in the spring, we'd always put, we'd find their quarterback. And we'd probably find a tailback or what we called an eye back. About everybody else at first would go on defense. And then we'd find the offensive guys, and sometimes kids would play both ways some. But we believed in defense. And I remember one year, I think it was 97, we had 8 or 9 shutouts, had a school record in shutouts. And so we've always believed in defense. We've always believed in being in great, great, great shape. We'd come out of camp in wonderful, wonderful shape. We never had a problem with cramps. I told our guys, if you catch a cramp on the field, that tells me I'm not working you hard enough. I hadn't run you enough. And I had a rule that said, if you go down on the field, you better be hurt. I got to come out there and get you. You better be hurt. Don't you get up and run off the field like ain't nothing wrong. You daggone better be hurt. Otherwise, you get your butt off the field on your own. We never had anybody lay around on the field. They just wouldn't do it. And like I said, if they had a cramp, they wouldn't tell me because they knew it meant we were going to run more. They didn't. We just didn't do it. And, we just believed in being in great shape. We always had a lot of hydration was very important to us in practice and in the games. Nutrition, hydration, and being in great shape. And, I had just, I'll leave people out. I just had more great players. I mean, talk about Robert Edwards and Keo Spikes and Terrence Edwards and Jesse Miller and Eric Sanders and, just Vic Miller, Jesse Miller. I mean, just great, great players. Seth Watts, Lance Helton. I could go on. I'll leave somebody out. I shouldn't leave out the big-time Division I players. Just great players that just gave it everything they had. Not to lay it on too thick. I think if we'd have said, listen, guys, we're going to practice at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to practice naked. I think their philosophy would be, hey, if that's going to help us win, let's do it. Let's go, coach. Let's do it. They were that way. They'd have done it. They would have done it. They told me, I didn't know this at the time, but they told me that first year that I was at Washington County, that we were at camp. Now, we were getting after it now. I got to admit, I mean, it was no place for the weak. You know what I mean? We wouldn't get out. We were practicing 3 or 4 times a day and lifting weights and running and just working. And there was a group of them that were laying on their bunks in between practices, and they were talking about quitting. They said, well, let's just hang in there. Let's just hang in there. When we beat Mary Persons that year, first time in school history that Washington County beat Mary Persons, Coach, it was worth it. It was all worth it, man. It was all worth it. I remember Terrence Edwards. We played down in Americas in 96. And we got beat. Elbert beat us in 95. They were the state champions. We won it in 96 and 97. Well, in 96, we were still a pretty young team. Terrence and Jesse and Vic Miller and that bunch were still juniors. We had a real good junior team. And had a good group of seniors now, but we had a real talented junior team. And we played Westminster up in the Georgia Dome, and they had 7 Division I players. And we wore them out. I mean, we just run it down their throat. And we go to Americas. And I'm going to tell you, if you ever went through what we went through, you would be an advocate to play the state championship game in the Georgia Dome. Because when you play the state championship game on somebody else's field, you're the bad guys. It's their field. It's their game. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care what GHSA says. It's their home game. Well, we get there, and they got up tombstones all over the place with our players' names on it. Going down on the field, you walk down a fence line, and they got tombstone. They even had a tombstone with my name on it. And you go out there, and it is their home game now, bro. I'm telling you. And they jumped off 14-0. And it had been one of those things that was really close, but they had us 14-0. And we actually threw a touchdown pass in the first half that hit him right in the hands and bounced off his shoulder pads. And then we had a third down play where we scored a touchdown on a run, and it was a long run, and it was a third down play. So when you get a penalty, a holding penalty on third down, it notified the touchdown plus 15 yards. You know what I mean? So it called the touchdown back. We ended up not scoring, and they went in at half with a 14-0 lead, and we had scored. I think I'll stand correct, but I think that year we had been perfect in the red zone. We scored, had a good field goal kicker, had a great rush offense, and we had scored every time in the red zone. When we got the ball first in the third quarter and got in the red zone and got stopped for the first time all year on fourth down. And then they had a receiver named Wilson. John Wilson ended up going to Tulane. And we would play Terrence Edwards some on defense spot. We'd spot him on third down. He was a third down guy, late game guy, kind of thing. We put him in the game at corner, and he was locked up. We were in some kind of robber coverage. He was locked up with Wilson, man to man. And they had a quarterback that had gone to Florida State. I'll remember his name here in a minute. Had an offensive lineman that was going to Florida State. They had a great receiver that was going to Tulane. And they threw a takeoff route to him, and Terrence had him covered like a blanket. And the pass was there, and Terrence went up and batted the ball, and it batted it straight up in there, end over end. He caught it and run it in for a touchdown. And they went up 21-0. And, my lowest point that night was our defense is coming off the field, and I had a nose guard that I just loved to death. Great big guy, went to Georgia Southern, great tough guy. His name was Tyree Williams, and he's walking off the field. And I said, "You jog off the field. Don't walk off the field, jog off the field." He kept walking. I said, "Jog off the field, Tyree," and he kept walking. Well, I went to him and grabbed him and shoved him off. Just literally shoved him off the field. And I remember thinking, man, it don't get any worse than this. One of my veteran starters now is wanting to loaf around and feel sorry for himself. Well, they kick off to us, and it was business as usual. Terrence Edwards, heck, he never panicked. He got the ball. We put together a drive, and we ran an option left. He made about three people miss, and we went in the end zone and scored. And so it's fourth quarter, and it's 21-7. And then we kick off to them, and they catch it, and they're running down the field. We had a little old, what was Jamie's last name? Jamie Stevens. Had a little old guy that was a backup. He was a backup tailback. He put a hit on their return guy. The ball popped straight up in the air, and we get it. It's our ball going in. We run about 3 plays, and we score 21-14. Well, our defense gets fired up now. They're fired up. So America gets the ball back, and they can't move it. And we put together about a 15-play drive and go down and score. There's not a lot of time left, but we go down and score, make it 21-20. And we line up to kick the extra point. And some people say this is luck, but we go over it every day. You know what a fire call is. You've heard a fire call. Well, it was unusually cold this particular night in South Carolina. Very, very cold. And our center kind of skimmed the ball back to our holder, and our holder was Terrence Edwards. Our kicker was a guy named Reed Bethea that ended up kicking the University of South Carolina. Well, he rolled it back there, and they had a little bit of pressure. Terrence scooped it up, and our kicker, Reed Bethea, got in front of him through a block. He sprinted to the pylon, and he dove and hit the pylon, and it was good. So we're leading 22-21. And we kick off to them, and they cannot budge. Our defense is getting all over them. And we get the ball back, and we're running one of our famous plays. It's an off-tackle play. Some people call it a belly play. Some people call it a G belly. We called it trap, 32-38 trap. We got it from the University of Nebraska. I had a fullback named Greg Cooper, who's coaching at Washington County now. At that time, he set the all-time state record for scoring, had 44 touchdowns that year. And we're giving it to Greg left and Greg right, and he is gashing them. I mean, he's gashing them. He's getting 7 yards, 8 yards, 7 yards, and they're dead. They're dead. They're bent over, gasping for breath out there. And we're dadgum gashing them. We had a 2nd and 5, I think it was. And I called the play thinking, okay, we're going to run out the clock. That dadgum Greg Knucklehead went the wrong way. And Terrence turned around and he tried to recover. And they got him for a 2-yard loss. So now we're 3rd and I think it was 3rd and 7 instead of being close to a first down. And that's probably the only time in his career I got all over Greg. But we ended up getting a first down and ran out the clock. And check me if I'm wrong, according to Georgia High School Football Daily, that was the greatest comeback, maybe in Georgia history, maybe in state championship history, or it may have been AA history. I don't know, but it was one of the greatest comebacks in Georgia high school football history. We came back and won 22-21. And they shaved my head after the game. The kids used to tease me that I didn't like this, by the way. Said my hair looked like Conway Twitty. Well, I didn't like that. I didn't want to be like Conway Twitty. And they said it kind of looked like Elvis's hair because I just brushed it straight. I had real thick hair, brushed it straight back. Well, they shaved it all. And from that night on, I wore a flat top. The rest of my life, I wore a flat top. So I kept my hair in flat top. And then the next year, we had almost the same team back. And we ended up playing, again, undefeated now. 2 years in a row, we got to play on the road in the state championship game. We didn't host. You'd think the next year we'd host it, but that's just not the way it was bracketed back in those days. We're undefeated. We're 14-0. We play at Carrollton. And they got a really, really, really good team. And it was a college environment. I mean, it was one of those deals you jog out and warm up and you standing ovation. I mean, it just sent chills down your spine. It was just unbelievably good. And we got into an offensive shootout with them. They could really throw it and we could really run it. And I always thought if that happened, I felt like we were going to be okay because I felt good about our conditioning and our toughness. Well, we missed an extra point, and they had us 21-20 at half. Well, we didn't change anything. We just said, hey, we're going to keep giving it to them. And we go out there and dominate the second half. And just us, just Washington County, we had 614 yards on offense, 250 through the air, and the rest of it was on the ground. They could not stop us. I mean, they could not stop us. And we ended up winning 42-28. And we ended the game. We took a knee on the 1 yard line. We run out the clock on the 1 yard line and won the state championship. And we're 15-0. And great win. Great experience. We actually played for the state title in 92 and 2004. And we lost those two. And then we won it in 94, 96, 97. And most of our years there, our worst year was a 7-win year, was a 7-4 year. And a lot of our years would have been 9, 10, 11, 12 wins. If we didn't go to the Dome and win the state championship, we thought it was a bad year with those guys. And I tell you, I should have listened to my wife and my daughter. I should have listened to them. You coaches out there that are hearing this, you better listen to your wife. Don't do like Dumbo here, do your own thing because you'll mess up. Trust me. And I don't mind sharing this. I hope this is not improper to say this, Chris. Valdosta got in touch with me. And I was friends with David Waller, who was, at that time, he had been Touchdown Club president, used to be the chairman there for the Board of Education, chairman of the Board of Education. Big personality in Valdosta football. And he owned property in Washington County. And anytime they came up during football season, they would come to our games. And he told, I hope this is not a secret, he told some of my friends that, we love Rick. When Nick Hyder retires, we're going to offer Rick the job, but he's got to win the state championship. We can't hire him unless he wins the state championship. So he needs to work on winning. Well, we won 3 and played for 2 more. And anytime we played, they'd come watch us play. Well, they told me they wanted to talk with me. And the principal at times was a gem of a guy, just the greatest guy in the world, named Brett Stanton. And in my correspondence with him prior to going to the interview, he told me, he said, Rick, we're going to offer you this job. He said, you need to figure out if this is what you want. You need to make up your mind. This is what you want. When you come down here, we're going to offer you the job. So I told Angela, my wife. She was very leery based on what happened at Lowndes. Oh, boy, she was leery. You don't want to go back down there. I said, but Angela, that's the Notre Dame of high school football. You got to go to Valdosta if they call you. And we had, in my mind, in my warped mind, we had taken Washington County about as far as you could go. We played for 5 state championships and had all those great players. And, I had a great staff. And, we were just going to keep on keeping on there. And Tiffany, my daughter, was a senior in high school. And she didn't want to go. She had a boyfriend. And she wanted to stay there in that area. And I went down there and we went there. They gave us a motel room and took us out to dinner. And then I went and talked with the principal and superintendent. And I go in there, and the superintendent was a great guy, African-American gentleman named Sam Allen. Just loved him to death. Just a great, great guy. And he said, we want you, Coach. We're offering you the job. And he said, we're going to make you the athletic director when you're ready. He said, we got an athletic director now, but you just tell me when you're ready. You're going to take over as athletic director. We just don't want to put too much on you one time and want you to focus on football. I said, okay. And he said, we're going to get you some secretarial help. I thought, a secretary? He said, yeah, there's a lot of paperwork. We're going to hire you a secretary and want you to hire you a secretary. I thought, wow. And he said, the Touchdown Club is going to offer you a truck to drive. It won't be your truck, but you can drive it. He said, now, if I were you, I wouldn't take that truck. And I said, well, I got a new truck. I had a truck for a few months. He said, you got a truck now? I said, yeah. He said, what's your truck payment? I said, I have no idea. I said, Angela makes the payments. He said, well, let's just say $300 a month. I don't know if that was enough. He said, why don't I increase your salary to cover your truck payment? I thought, that's damn good. Heck yeah, let's do it, man. He said, so I can count on you to come? I said, heck yeah, I'm coming. Well, I go outside, and we had a motel room. I told Angela too, and I said, I'm coming to Valdosta. And boy, they pitched, they fit, and fell in it. They just destroyed whatever joy I had. No, Rick, don't do this. Tiffany just didn't want to do it at all. And I talked them into it, which was a bad move. I didn't tell you the whole story. There was one day when, before we went down there, prior to us going to Valdosta, I'm a man of faith, and I believe in prayer. I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe God does answer prayers and guide us. I believe that with all my heart. And I don't mind putting this right out there for everybody to hear. And I take our little dog outside one night, little Chihuahua named Maddie, and I took her out in the front yard. You could look across the street there. We live across the street from a lake. You could see the water and the moon shining on the water. And I go to the Lord in prayer, and I just said, Lord, tell me what to do. They're going to offer me the job at Washington County. Give me guidance. Tell me what to do. And I tell you, I believe this. This happened. This is not corny. I heard a voice. It wasn't an audible voice. I didn't hear it, I don't think, with my ears. I heard it with my mind and my heart. And I felt like it was the Lord Jesus. He said, Rick, you're going to get that job. You're going to get it. You're going to take the job, and it's going to really hurt. It's going to hurt. And I didn't understand what that meant. I just didn't fully understand it. But, man, he was right. He was dead on. It didn't ever hurt. And I go there, and we had just the toughest first year. I mean, we played the toughest schedule in the history of Georgia high school football. The guy that had been the ticket man had made the schedule. He lined up Murders Row. We played Lincoln High School out of Florida. We played an all-star team from Utah. We played Collins Hill, who was the biggest school in the state. I mean, we played Thomasville High School, defending 3A state champion. I mean, if they were tough, we played them. And we played everybody real tough. But we went 1-9. Terribly embarrassing. And I'm thinking, man, did I ever screw up? I screwed up royally. And they had patience with me. And then the second year, we went 9-3, won 9 games. And I'm coach of the year. I'm the region coach of the year, in fact. And we won another state weightlifting championship, a regional weight competition. third year, we had a group that really didn't have. I mean, as seniors, there was a great group of kids. There's not many athletes. Went 5-5, and the fourth year we went 7-3. And man, they called me in and let me go, and man, it hurt. Ooh, did it ever hurt? I was thinking that was going to be my last job and last move. And we bought a house there. Tiffany was in college there. Angela worked there, and by the way, she worked in the school system. And what a lot of people don't understand is on the college level, when they let a coach go, a lot of times he's got a multiple-year contract. He gets all this big buyout money. They let you go on the high school level. You got till July 1st to find a daggum job. When you're on a 12-month contract, you don't have a job by July 1st. You don't have money coming in. You got to sell the house, find a wife a job, go find a job, and everything. So I had to find a job. And thank God, Yancey Ford from Effingham County called me. They were looking for it. He called me. And I come up here and interviewed. They offered me the job. And I'd been here as an assistant coach years before. I just hit it off great with him and Tim Hood, who was the assistant principal and was the county athletic director. And I came up here, and Angela stayed in Valdosta to sell the house. Man, I remember Coach Bowden talking about when he went from West Virginia to Florida State. His family stayed in West Virginia initially because they were in school. And he said he'd be going to work and he'd hear a song that reminded me of his kids and his family. He said he'd cry and cry and cry. Well, I'm right there with him. I'd cry and cry. I miss my family. Man, I wanted to see my wife and my daughter and our dog. And I was a big old whip, to be honest with you. And they gave me a little apartment up here. And I stayed in the old folks' home. I stayed where senior living. They had a little duplex for senior living. And I'd stay Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night and work Friday. And I'd go home to Valdosta on Friday afternoon. And we did that for about 6 months. And there were no houses selling. So finally, our house sold after a lot of prayer. God sold our house. There was no house. We lived on a quarter-mile circle in a pecan orchard, at a former pecan orchard. No houses were selling. Well, he sold our house for us. And we took less than what we wanted to take for us. We did sell the house. And that enabled us to buy a house here we really wanted. And we bought a better house here, to be honest. We enabled us to get a better. We're still in it. We've been in it 14 and a half years. And tough moves. Again, you got to start. You got to find a job or you don't eat. Angela had a job, had to find her another job, had to relocate, move the dogs, move the pets, do everything over again. And I think a lot of people think coaches just come and go, just change addresses. Well, there's a lot more to it than that, as you well know. I mean, you got a lot of work to do to get to that new school. It's a lot of work. And I enjoyed Effingham, liked it. And I'd always thought that when my coaching days were over, I'd go to work with Bigger, Faster, Stronger. I had started working with them in 1999 as a clinician. And in the off season, they would send me to California, to Montana, to Maine, to Ohio, to Iowa. I got to see some neat places. I did a clinic in Los Angeles at Riverdale High School in Riverside, California. The coach took me to USC, and we toured the football facilities and saw O.J. Simpson's Heisman Trophy and went into, just did everything there. I went to Michigan, went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and went into Big House with a coach up there. I did a clinic just south of Notre Dame. We went to Notre Dame, watched them practice. I did a clinic in Columbus, Ohio. Went to Ohio State Buckeye Stadium and saw where the Buckeyes practice. And went to one in Blacksburg, Virginia, and saw where Virginia Tech went and toured their facilities and all. And one of my favorite clinics I did in a place called Bridgeton, Maine. I did a 2 or 3 day clinic in Bridgeton, Maine, and real successful clinic there. And I liked it so much. Angela and I flown back a couple of times into Boston, and then flew into Portland and went up the coast there and went up to Booth Bay Harbor and Bar Harbor, Maine, and just really enjoyed Maine. And one of the clinics I did, my second favorite, was in Bozeman, Montana. I went to Bozeman and the Bozeman Scoopers, and they did a 3 or 4 day clinic there in Bozeman. We'd go in on Friday morning, do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come back Sunday night. It's actually a 3-day clinic. And in the process, they took me up to Deadwood, Dakota, up to Deadwood, and we saw Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane's grave. And actually, I did a clinic in South Dakota then. When I went to Bozeman, Angela went with me, and I got my states mixed up. We went down to Yellowstone on Saturday afternoon, and drove around Yellowstone, and drove up and flew out on Sunday morning. But we saw a lot of Yellowstone and a lot of Bozeman, just a real neat town. So Bigger, Faster, Stronger enabled me to see places I probably would have never saw and meet people I would have never met, coaches from all over the country and programs and college programs from all over the country. And, you mentioned I was lucky enough to be part of 270 wins. Well, a lot of that was due to great, great, great players, great assistant coaches, great support. I got the greatest wife in the world. Been married 43 and a half years. Got a beautiful daughter that teaches kindergarten, 3 beautiful grandchildren. I'm the most blessed, luckiest man in the world. God sure does love me. He's blessed these poor, dumb country boys like me. I can promise you. He's blessed me. And I was blessed to get a high school diploma. I was blessed to get a college diploma. Blessed to play for a man like Bobby Bowden, who really influenced me, and then work for a guy like Bob Griffith and Bruce Bennett, who both really influenced me. And then met a lot of guys throughout the years, like Billy Henderson at Clark Central, that he and I got the same haircut. And I won't never forget going to a clinic. And you know how it is, Chris. You go to clinics, and some coaches are gentlemen. They do a great job, and some of them drink beer and do other things. Well, I remember seeing Billy Henderson with his wife, and they both were holding hands coming down the steps. They stayed in the same motel we did, and they were going jogging together. And I remember thinking, that's how I want to be. I'm going to take my wife, and I'm going to speak and try to grow and get better, and I'm not going to be out drinking beer and raising cane. I'm going to be like Billy Henderson. So he was a real role model to me. And, through the years, we played Robert Davis at Moore Robbins when I was at Lowndes. And we played him at Washington County several times, and just really thought a lot of him. I just really liked the way he did business. He was a great coach and fierce competitor, but he was just as good to you as he could be. Just really thought a lot of him. And just a lot of guys out there like that. I think of John Peacock, who was at Montgomery County. Beat me twice. Never beat John, but just a gentleman, just the greatest guy in the world. Just a great guy that would help you, give you the shirt off his back. And the people that I joke when I say it, but I'm serious. I did 2 things right. I might have screwed up a whole bunch. But I did 2 things right. I married right. I got the right girl, 43 and a half years. I got the right woman for my wife. And I'm real lucky. She's beautiful. She's gorgeous. And she hasn't kicked me out of the house yet. And going into education, going into coaching and teaching was certainly the right thing to do. And then I mentioned it to you before we started the podcast, but Greg Shepard with Bigger, Faster, Stronger. What a great mentor he was to me. He was the closest thing to a genius I've ever seen. He devised and put the program together. He developed the program. He studied and trained at the Olympic Training Center. He would watch the discus throwers and the hammer throwers and the shot putters. He watched how they trained with weights. He'd see the football players that'd be, a little on the fat side. The football linemen would be slow and big, but the track athletes, the discus throwers, the hammer throwers were muscular. They were fast. And he started asking them questions about, what do you do? How do you train? How do you get that way? And he put together the set rep system and the exercises of Bigger, Faster, Stronger. And he did it with the high school coach in mind. He coached in high school, and he always called it the secret. There's a secret. It's not X's and O's. It's not offensive or defensive genius. It's developing your players. It's making your players bigger, faster, stronger. That's the secret. And the secret is how you train with them. And I always thought that was an edge. If I had an edge, that was it. that we were going to follow what I thought was the greatest strength program in the world, especially for high school kids. We're going to get a great number of them out there. We're going to get them involved. We're going to have great enthusiasm. I was going to demand that any coach that coached for me was going to be really enthusiastic about the strength program. He wasn't, I was going to get rid of it. You're going to push the strength program. You're going to be enthusiastic about it, or you need to go somewhere else, because we're going to make that the core of what we do. And I don't think you got to be real complicated on the high school level. I think if you're in great shape, if you're strong, which is going to help you with injury prevention, and you're enthusiastic and you're positive, and you go out there and you put a premium on defense, and you really stress fundamentals, and then you can run the football some on offense and then throw it on your terms. One thing, everybody tells me I got a reputation to be a 3-yard cloud of dust. And that team I had in 1994, George Askew, I had a little old quarterback that threw 29 touchdown passes that year with only 2 interceptions. And that's Joe Montana type numbers now. You think about that. 29 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. And a lot of them were play action, bootlegs, sprint draw type passes. They were still touchdown passes. So we threw it on our terms. And, it was just the greatest blessing in the world. If you had told me when I was at Florida State what I was going to be able to do, going to be able to play in 5 state championships, win 3 of them, be 15-0 3 times, and, win 10 region championships. And, heck, man, other players I've been lucky enough to. Nolan Smith just played with the Eagles. I coached him at Calvary. And Michael Gilliard led the Georgia Bulldogs in tackles one year. Jay Rome played at Georgia. Just Dontavis South played at University of Tennessee, started for them. I had a kid that played for me at Jonesboro named Tracy Smith that loved him to death. And he goes to Tennessee, was my tailback. And he went to Tennessee and played defensive back, played corner. I watched him play in Athens one day. But they were playing UCLA in Knoxville, and they were losing. And he had an interception, a pick 6 for a touchdown that helped them win the game. And Tennessee was able to beat UCLA. Well, the very next year, they got to go out to Los Angeles and play UCLA again. And the 2 tailbacks had been hurt. Spud Webb was one, and there was another one that was hurt. So they thought, we got to have some hits. So they moved Tracy to offense. So he goes to tailback, and he's SEC back of the week that week against UCLA. Ran all over UCLA out in Los Angeles. So I was real proud of Tracy, obviously, for that. And then, of course, Terrence Edwards and Robert Edwards. I mean, if their mamas and daddies would have let me, I'd adopted them. I just love those boys to death. Terrence Edwards was just such a winner. I mean, you talk about a winner. We watched him the senior year. He made the Georgia-Florida All-Star game. And Little Washington County, little AA school, they played, the Georgia All-Stars played the Florida All-Stars that year. And Florida had the edge, I think, at that point. And you see them getting ready to run out on the field, and the guy that's out front getting them jacked up, little Terrence Edwards, he was one of the real leaders. He emerged as one of the real leaders. He and Jesse Miller and the boys from the kids from Central Thomasville, Joe Burns and that group put it on Florida that day. Just put it on. And, he's just a born leader. He's up in Atlanta now at a private school, and I can't spit the name out right now. It shows you I'm getting older. Mount Vernon Academy up in Atlanta. He's head coach, and he's going to do real well. And of course, Robert Edwards is back at Waco as head coach, and he's going to do a good job there. And of course, Takeo Spikes is legendary. He's been on the SEC network and on the NFL network, and he's all pro. Played with several teams, played with Philadelphia, drafted number 1. He was the 13th pick in the first round by Cincinnati. Played at Cincinnati, played at Buffalo, was all pro at Buffalo, played at Philadelphia, played at San Francisco, played at San Diego. And a couple of different times he nominated me for the NFL High School Coach of the Year. And I got in the top 5 every year. And they gave the school $25,000 in one year for me making the top 5. And gave me a little bit of money, but more importantly, gave the school $25,000. And he has just been so good. I mean, I call him all the time. They asked me to speak at the little Ebenezer Middle School a football practice one day, and I was taking them through, the things I thought they needed to hear about teamwork and being a great teammate, and working hard. And I gave them a little secret word that we use for strength. And I said, matter of fact, this is Takeo Spikes. I showed them his picture. I said, now, if you look up badass in the dictionary, you see his picture. He's a real badass now. And they laughed. I said, let me call him. So I called him, and he answered the phone, and he talked to the kids for just a minute, and that big old neck. And he's got that big, giant neck. And I remember one year in the Pro Bowl, Chris, for the AFC, you had Junior Seau, you had Takeo Spikes, and you had Ray Lewis. Now think about that as your starting linebacker crew. Ain't many offenses don't run much against that.
Yeah, that's pretty strong.
That group of defenders. Yeah. Heck yeah. In fact, the bus, what was it? Jerome Bettis, that played for the Steelers, said Takeo Spikes was the best linebacker he played against. And, he's just a great thing. I could go on and on and on some things that he did. Let me just trust me to believe this. He and Demetro Stevens bent and dented more than one set of face masks during games. Trust me that when they hit you, you were going down. They were. It was like men playing against boys. I tell you, when Takeo Spikes played, I expected to be arrested for child abuse at any time because he was a man amongst boys. Now I'm telling you, when he played, he was a physical specimen.
Well, Coach, you definitely developed a bunch of men amongst boys and poured into them over the years, and the things that you've done in the Georgia High School Association and as a coach and as a man and as a leader of men, it's just been fun to watch and just appreciate it amongst your peers and just appreciate what you did for all the young men that you came into contact with. And I just appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us today.
I go on and on. I told you, once I got started, it's hard to slow down. But I've enjoyed reminiscing. Like I said, one day I'm going to write a book. I could write a book about Valdosta and Lowndes by themselves. I may get sued if I do that. I better not do it, I guess. But people wouldn't believe some of the things that you went through. But, yeah, I had a lot of great years. I've been fortunate, just luckiest coach, the absolute luckiest coach in the world. Good Lord's really blessed me. And I appreciate you having me on.
Well, Coach, I sure appreciate it.
Thank you.